Excellent. So I'm going to call to order this March 7th Board of Ed workshop. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So it looks like we move right into the central office report
Yes.
this evening.
Yep.
We have
So-
some special guests.
So we have a, boy, I'm trying to think. It's been a number of years since that I think we've been kind of working towards tonight. I know at the end it'll look like, oh, here, this happened. So I'll start it off from kind of a district kind of level conversation, then we'll kind of move that to the building level and to the classroom level. So just from a high level view, a number of years ago, at the high school, we started the diploma program, which is the International Baccalaureate program for students in 11th and 12th grade. And so actually, as the board knows, community knows, we were just recertified for that after our first 5 years. And basically, as that team was pulling together their first piece, their teacher leadership team here, with some guidance from some material breaking ranks and things like that, talked about how can we think about, as our school here at the middle school is preparing our children for the next steps in their journey in their educational lives, and knowing that the society and the culture and frankly, the technology that they're moving into is going to demand some different things from children in the future. Don't think about what kids need today, but what do they need in the next 20, 30, 40 years. And so very quickly, the leadership team identified some work in relationship to, again, the International Baccalaureate program or the middle years program. So the team has been working that over for a number of years, and so I'm going to hand this over to Jeff, if that's all right, and Jen, just as they talked about some of their leadership conversations, and that kind of took that to the teacher leadership team. There's no way that the size and the scope of this project would have been accomplished now, and frankly, just on the heels of coming out of a worldwide pandemic, without the leadership of the teachers here in this building. So I'll hand it over to you two, and then we'll kick it down to the classroom. So thanks, Jen and Jeff.
So thanks, Ray. It's hard to believe that we began this work in 2016, and we called that our SMS 2020 project. And it really was our plan to think about how to structure our middle school and how to plan our middle school in the most meaningful way, knowing that we were having this decrease in enrollment. And as Ray said, we looked at a document called Breaking Ranks in the Middle and worked with our central office and leadership team to identify strategies that we thought would be the most important for our students. And a couple areas really stuck out in our mind. One was personalizing the school environment to make sure that kids felt cared for and that they knew that our teachers were there for them and were creating that environment that was most conducive to learning. And also making learning personal and making sure that we engage students at that personal level. So in ways to do that was to connect we identified connecting our content and curriculum to real life, accommodating individual learning needs to ensure that we're cognitively engaging all students, and to make learning meaningful. Connect the learning between disciplines and allow students flexibility in how they demonstrate their understanding, that there's not a one-size-fits-all. And we wanted to move beyond our traditional assessments and grades and focus on process, feedback, reflection, and continuous improvement. We also felt it was important for our 8th graders to have a capstone project experience, and you're going to hear from our 8th graders who are piloting our MYP project this year, our community project this year. So as we identified those needs for our middle school, we quickly learned that the IB middle years program had many of those aspects, and we did a feasibility study that we've talked about and realized pretty quickly that what we wanted in our middle school aligned very closely with the NYP program, and we decided to start that process. And hard to believe it was 7 years ago.
So I came here in 2020, and we didn't reach that goal in terms of time, but On a personal level, it was the reason why I applied for the middle school assistant principal job. The MYP work is cutting edge, very progressive education, and the type of work I wanted to be a part of. And during the past few years of pandemic, our faculty and staff has worked tirelessly to keep this work going, and just the conversations that they have about pedagogy and practice and how do you make a middle school experience enriching for kids has been really, really great. And as someone who came from somewhere else, I can tell you that it's not a conversation that's happening in other middle schools everywhere. And it is happening here, and it's thriving, and something we should all be very proud of. And you can see and feel the energy difference in our kids, and I know that they're going to share that with you, and you'll be very excited to hear it.
So before we turn it over to the students and the other faculty, just to give a recap of our verification visit. When the team from IB came, one of the head people from IB said she had been to 67 different schools on authorization visits. And this was one of the best schools she had ever visited. Part of that was the respect that the faculty and administration have for each other. They highlighted the amount of different clubs and extracurricular activities that are offered for students, really embracing all students. They highlighted the supports that are in place for every single student, and they said you can't fake it. You can tell that teachers really care about the students and that kids want to be here and how engaged they are. So that was really good feedback. They visited 14 different classrooms, spoke to our MYP professional learning team, spoke to 8 additional content teachers, spoke to the Board of Education members, spoke to administration, spoke to parents, spoke to a panel of students. So now we're authorized, and that is a very big deal. Congratulations to everybody. That really is a testament to everybody's hard work. And they'll come back in about 5 years for evaluation. But we are, as a reflective team here, we reevaluate ourselves constantly. That's part of one of the tenets of IB. One of the most meaningful questions I'm often asked is, as a parent, we get that we're an IB school, we understand we're part of a global community, we understand this is really prestigious. But what does that mean for our students? What does it look like in the classroom? And part of our work, now that we're in the evaluation phase, is recognizing parents are an important part and stakeholder, and how we can involve them more in this work. And I thought that the best way to understand what it's like in the classroom is to hear from students and teachers. So we have 8 faculty members here who are here to speak about their experience and how their practice has changed, and we have 9 students. Some are directly here to talk about being a community project pilot, and some are 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to talk about their experience as they matriculate through the school. It is set up like a Socratic seminar, which is something that our students are very familiar with because it's one of the ways we assess students. So we'll be offering prompts, but really it's an open conversation for other faculty members and kids to share their experience. So did anybody have a question, or can they begin? So for the students that are here, what would you say is different? How is your learning different, or what is it like to be in a classroom where MYP is the framework and how learning and teaching is approached?
Well, in SIS, Summers Intermediate School,
Someone pass
Sophia.
Bernardi the mic.
in SIS, I had no idea what MIP was, and I thought that I would never remember all the profiles, even though there are only 10. But the teachers incorporate the profiles in almost every lesson. MYP doesn't necessarily make things easier, but it helps you understand things from a different angle. Like, I know that something that we've been doing is called the interdisciplinary unit. It's where you can take one subject and almost relate it to another, and it's almost like it's a new way of learning, and it makes it seem almost more fun, but it just helps in a way, because it shows you almost what it'll be like when you're older and you get out of Somers schools. It's almost like in ELA, in SIS, it was just ELA is with ELA. But now ELA can connect with social studies. I know we did a unit where we became well aware about where people in southern Sudan, how they had struggled to get water and how we were privileged. And in the book, in ELA, we almost got to empathize and see ourselves in their shoes. And in social studies, we got to do more research about this interesting topic. And I feel like that is like, an MYP just gives us like a different way of learning. It doesn't necessarily make things easier, but it helps us see things from different perspectives.
So I know Emily wants to jump in, but before she does, interdisciplinary learning, as Sophia just so eloquently said, thank you for that, it's one of the requirements of being an MYP school. So in order to get authorized, we had to have one interdisciplinary unit per grade level written, and we are implementing them this year. Our goal too as a school is, of course, to have more. That's the way we feel to transfer learning from one subject to another, but that's what she's specifically talking about, and that's one of the ways that MYP is different. Go ahead, Emily.
So in ELA, as Sophia said, we did an interplanetary I don't know.
It's a tongue twister.
But we did like a mixed class with social studies, and we read a book called A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park, and it was about a war in Sudan that took place in 1983, and we did like kind of like a replica or like a mimic of this in social studies by taking small spoons full of water from a bowl on the teacher's desk to a cup on our own table. And it was kind of mimicking that the cup on our own table was at least like a school or a town or at least some source of water. And the teacher's desk had a bowl of water, and that represented the nearest water source. And the spoon represented a bucket of water, and we represented the people. And we had to take that spoon, bring it over to the nearest water source, and bring it back to our town or our school. And it did get a little frustrating because some people did spill the water, but that's okay. But just imagine that being a huge, I don't know, maybe like 2-gallon water bucket and spilling that. That could easily get you hurt, and that can make a big impact in your town.
To add on to that, in PE, we recently did this project where we counted our resting heart rate for 15 seconds, and then we had to think about math and do that times 4. And then after, we did the exercises, and we counted our pulse for 15 seconds after, and did that times 4. And you could see as the exercise intense, like your heart rate would go up. And I realized that in science, we were just talking about how the way you exercise increases your need for oxygen, and how your blood and your pulse brings oxygen for the other cells of your body. So I thought that, like, I always think, like, am I really gonna need this in real life? And that just showed me, like, how everything connects.
I think that the biggest difference from an MYP classroom to a regular classroom is how much choice, like more choice we get. Like there are many different kinds of assessments now, and like I feel like that also brings on more responsibility in all the students.
Does anybody want to speak about the kind of assessments that you partake in, different ways to show what you know?
Yeah, so like assessments can be done in multiple different types of ways at SMS now. Like in 6th grade, it was more just either multiple choice tests or like written tests or a combination of both. But as I've gone from 6th grade to 8th grade, we've started to have different types of assessments. We've had projects, we've had Socratic seminars, we've had, what else? We've done posters, we've done, what? Yeah, we've done debates. Like in social studies this year, we did a debate on what type of U.S. foreign policy that we should have after, I think in the late 1800s, about like which one we should have and which one would benefit our country the most, and that was our assessment. Meanwhile, before that in social studies, we had only done multiple choice tests, but we were able to do a different type of assessment that would benefit some students more than it would others. And then, so like some assessments can benefit some students, but others can benefit other students more to get their like knowledge of learning.
One of the best ways that MYP has benefited students is that it has taken grades and turned them into something more meaningful than just a number on a computer screen. Because now, for almost all of the assignments that we have rubrics that show the criteria for each assignment. And when we get those rubrics back, it's actually a meaningful piece of feedback on how we should work in the future, instead of just a you pass, you fail type of situation. And I think that has really helped students, first of all, gain more self-confidence, and also think of school not as an opportunity to just show what you already know, but an opportunity to find out what you need help with, what you're good at, and improve on it.
We didn't pay him to say that.
Adding on to that, we're usually now given rubrics like at the beginning of the assignment, so we can look at that and know the guidelines and what we can do to further raise our grade, and that really helps us to get better grades and like think about what we need to do. And also in classes, we're usually encouraged to like think about the different MYP traits, like being a risk taker, a thinker, an inquirer, being caring, and that usually relates to one of our assignments.
I think that like in one of the classes that I've seen this like the most is in science, where when we're giving the rubric at the beginning of the assessment, it definitely helps, because if you compare that to the previous years, when you take an assignment, it's so standardized that you get that grade back and you're like, oh, we move on. But with this, we're being reflective. We take our knowledge from a previous lesson and apply that to the next, and keep going like that until, I guess, the end of the year.
MYP has given students a new lens to view their works. Now, like, it's not too much of a drastic change to the point that students are overwhelmed, but it's a bit challenging. But I feel like it has helped students view their work as not just something they have to do to just move forward in time, but actually something meaningful for their lives in the future. For college and for their careers, because now through MYP, we see coursework as, we see each assignment as something meaningful, and we see that the impact of that assignment and how that assignment will help us in the future, and what we're actually specifically learning from that assignment. Like a lot of people used to say, like, what's the point of school? And MYP has actually helped us see that each assignment is meaningful and helps us proceed in our lives.
I feel like this, Connor, did you want to say something first?
No, I'm all right if you want.
I feel like this is a good time to talk a little bit from the teacher standpoint, and how this has changed your practice, or how you design some of the assessments and learning engagements. I do want to point out that in an MYP school, grades 6 through 10, this is not something that students have to apply for. This is just how we teach. And I do want to be clear, this does not change the content whatsoever. Each class still adheres to the New York State standards and curriculum and frameworks based on their subject. What it does is it changes the way that we teach, or the way that we approach content or lessons. So it's not changing what we teach, it's changing how we teach. And we are strong believers that we do not tell kids what to think. We are trying to teach them how to think. All the students that are speaking today, these are their own thoughts, and this is from their experience. So I'm wondering if we could hear from some of the faculty members here tonight about how this has changed your practice, or some of the things. I know we have our library media specialist here today, and how she supports curriculum, especially those approaches to learning, and how maybe you design some of the assessments.
Hey, I can start. Can you hear me all right? Or do I need this? All right, so Christine Velez, of course, and just bouncing off of what Samira said about the assessments, I think that it's I mean, having been here for quite some time, I will tell you that the way that we approach assessments now is very different. Aside from having new New York State standards for science, as well as now instituting MYP, we've had to really look closely at how we teach, what we teach, and how we assess the students. So it has been a very interesting past few years because we have spent a lot of time trying to build appropriate assessments for students to meet the standards, but also to really encourage the students to think very critically and really analyze as they're thinking. So I know the students that I'm looking across that do have me, they know that it's fairly demanding. I did teach the Regents Earth Science here for many years, and I will tell you that the rigor and the demands of the new courses that we teach here in 8th grade are comparable. I would definitely tell you that. And the students that have been working and have been utilizing reflection, correction on their work and their assessments, I do believe that they are benefiting. They are learning how to be thinkers and how to write critically. And I think that's a really big piece of what I'm noticing with MYP alongside with, of course, our new standards. The assessments are challenging and they are multi-level. We do not just, I don't think the children have had more than 2 or 3 multiple choice questions. Would you agree with that? Yeah, it's all critical thinking and writing. And that is extremely important because that's how we're able to really see what they know and what they understand and how can they apply the concepts. Because the assessments essentially are something totally different from what they have been working through in class as far as a specific task. The content is the same, but they have to now apply it differently. So it's challenging, and they are rising and meeting the challenge and taking full advantage of reflection, especially the students I'm seeing in front of me right now. They are always reflecting, which is amazing. So just wanted to add that part on assessments.
My name is Megan O'Connor. I'm the library media specialist here, and I just want to kind of jump off what Mrs. Velez said. I'm lucky enough to be able to see all of the grades, all of the students in the different classrooms, and I get to work with them on those skills to be able to break down those skills that they are using in 8th grade all the way down to 6th grade, and to be able to tackle the material and break down the skills again so that they know it's the same across the board in their building from 6th grade to 8th grade. What does it look like? How do you take notes? How are we annotating work? How are we using the same language across the board so that they know what to expect as they move through the classes and through the grades, and just being able to be confident in their work and the skills to be able to tackle assessments and texts and things as the challenge and the rigor grows and increases.
I'm going to speak a little bit. I'm Randy Hauser. I'm a French teacher. And one of the things that I think MYP has brought up is even just the learner profiles. And it seems so simple and it seems so obvious to me. And if you don't know what those are, they're all listed up above everybody behind. So there's like balanced and caring and open-minded. And it's something that seems so simple, yet it is very powerful just to make people aware of like, okay, so today we're going to focus on this, or in this particular thing that we're working on, or we're looking at, or just being aware that we're being conscious of being open-minded in this lesson and being aware of that. And I think it's important, and it's not something that even takes that much time, but by spending even small moments and students hearing that through the day in all of their classes and hearing that vocabulary consistently, I think that makes a big impact.
Hi, Rob Pomeno, 6th grade math teacher. From my perspective, I feel that MYP has allowed me as a professional to develop more creative units. I'm big into project-based learning, and I feel like it allows the teachers themselves to just dig a little bit deeper and see how what you're teaching them could be applied to the real world. So for 6th grade, the students for fractions might take on the role of a chef, and they'll have to alter different recipes. And I think that that's going to help them, because very rarely will you see that the side of the box is exactly what you need to make. So sometimes it might have to be for one student, for one person. Sometimes you might have to make it for a family or for a holiday party. I think when I think of ratios, they could be boring just looking at the ratio 1 to 2. But if you think of it as, or relate it to cars, where students have to think about different cars, and everybody wants that fancy sports car. But then when you realize the cost of the car and how it doesn't get such good gas mileage, it might be costly. And it allows the students themselves to realize and make connections to the real world. And I think that's one of the things that I appreciate most about MYP, because we're leaving the textbook and we're actually applying the learning, so the students will see it again and again down the road, and it's just preparing them best for the future.
Did you want to hand it down to Mr. Lugo? And I really appreciate Mr. Lugo being here, because he just came from Tech Week. If you don't know, our middle school musical production is on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and he literally just came up from Tech Week, so I really appreciate you. And if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, make sure you do. I feel like I told Mrs. Williams I would make sure, because she would be here, but she's down in the auditorium. Otherwise, she's a very valued member of our team.
Good plug, thank you. I'm really excited to be here. MYP has been great as far as teaching kids and making the connection to the real world in our design projects. We do all project-based learning in the technology labs, and one of the things that we've been really highlighting is getting kids to be risk takers in their design thinking, so that we're not just copying what other people did in the past, but we're using our research that we do through MYP to learn what they've done and then try to make our innovative designs even better, to come up with new inventions, new creations. And we're also relating those different things to the learner profiles, like being caring. We did a whole unit with looking at food insecurity in different places. And then we related that to our hydroponics biotechnology, where we're growing lettuce and then we're having the healthiest party in the school at the end, where the kids get to eat the lettuce that they grew using hydroponics. So it's been really great to see also the 6th graders that I started doing this with now become 8th graders, and how all the terminology and everything starts to get way smoother for them. And they can then focus their time on coming up with those really cool design risk and more creative projects. And we've had some amazing projects built this year. We've had 8th graders building amusement park rides for Lego people, and they're using Arduinos, and they're coding, and they're getting servos to move things, and motors spinning things, and LED lights making things go on and off, and then thinking about how would that impact and improve business for Six Flags or whoever the customers are entering the amusement park. So it's been a wonderful experience doing MYP.
Mrs. Kilmer, you have your own mic, so we don't even need to pass that.
Perfect. Okay, I might not need a mic.
I know. All right. She said it, not me. If you wanted to talk a little bit about the, any of the things that we do in social studies, but like the global close or process journal or anything that, I know
absolutely.
You're such an enthusiast.
So I'm Deb Kilmer. I teach 6th grade social studies. And I just cannot even tell you how MYP has changed my teaching philosophy, the confidence I have in myself as an educator, and the connections with students over living these IB learner profile attributes. They have been everything to me. I'm reflecting more, outside of school even, right? And when you do that and you become that and you could bring it into the classroom and share experiences with the students, they want to be like you, and they want to take risks, and they want to show that they're caring and knowledgeable. I have seen students this year more times than I have in the last few years. I've been saying that's MYP, because they're constantly doing things like making connections and building upon their own ideas to explore new learning. I'm always saying teacher facilitated, student driven. You guys are driving the work. I am here to support you. And giving them that gift and inviting them to take a risk and letting them know that they could do that is hands-on, a dynamic, mixture. And you get kids who are just willing to take that risk and to, branch out with different projects as opposed to always having to take a test. I tell the students I was a poor test taker my entire educational professional career. And I wish I had MYP where I can do this project-based learning, where I can show what I know through something, the means that makes me most comfortable and makes me shine best. And that has helped my teaching, that has helped my practice in whole, I think, with students in general. And I really see such growth in the students. This was the first year implementing the interdisciplinary unit, and I was the other half of it, of course, with ELA. It was fantastic. The students were so excited about collecting entries in their journal, and they were able to make these connections. And once they realized that they really are so interconnected, the learning that we're doing, and even outside of the two subjects, kids were able to connect within other subjects areas, and they really shined, and they were excited to meet with students from other classes to participate in the Socratic seminar. And the kids who didn't feel as comfortable, they still had the opportunity to come back, and it wasn't, you're not doing this right, you're not getting a good grade. It was, you can do this, push yourself, take that risk, and they're all doing such a great job. So I'm just so proud to be part of this MYP work.
One of the philosophies of MYP assessment is we want to know what students do know, not what they don't. And assessment is really, I think for some of us, assessment used to mean just a test, a multiple choice test. And we are not saying that we never give those. Test taking is a skill. We would be doing a disservice to students if we never gave them a test, but it's not the skill. We want to give many different opportunities, just like doing a Socratic seminar, doing a debate, doing a presentation. Our students in social studies just wrote a content-based essay. So giving many different vehicles for students to show what they know. And I would like to now kind of turn it over to Mrs. Iazetti. Jenna Iazetti, I'm so lucky to work hand in hand with her. She is our community project advisor, which is our capstone project here at the middle school, and I'll let her talk a little more about that.
Great, thank you. Yes, I am Jenna Iazetti, Italian teacher and also community project advisor this year. So as a requirement for the MYP, students in the year 3 are to complete their community project. And I'm listening to everything that's been discussed so far about everyone's experience in general in MYP. And, we've heard about how there's so much student choice. We feel like there's more choice. Learning is more about the process. We were hearing about from Ms. O'Connor, our library media specialist, how she's working with students on the different skills that they want to develop and transfer those through all of their classes, such as reflecting and thinking. And we heard about making learning personal. And really the community project encompasses all of that. We were just hearing about process journal experiences, and that's exactly what is part of the community project when they get to 8th grade. So it's considered to be a celebration of their learning in the 3 years of the MYP program, to show everything that they've learned or that they've developed through a topic of personal interest, through a topic of choice, and hopefully making that truly personal for their learning. So this year, we decided to run a pilot program for the community project, and that allowed us to offer some professional development for our teachers as well. We had an in-service course for about 16 teachers who volunteered to serve as mentors and supervisors to the students in the pilot. We have 40 students who volunteered to be a part of this pilot, and we chose to do this so that we can experience it in a way and then reflect on that and decide what will be the best way to implement this program, this capstone program, to our 8th graders going forward when we get to full implementation for an entire grade level. So as I said, 40 students in the pilot this year. We have 4 professionals here with us tonight that I'd like to turn it over and see we can learn a little bit about why you chose to do this and what you've learned so far.
So I think that this community project was definitely a great opportunity. I liked the choice aspect of it because it was nice that we were able to pick what we wanted to learn more about. It's a good opportunity to learn more about the world around us and like what we can do to help, not only now, but as our lives go on. And me and my partner decided to do something regarding composting because we noticed that like a lot of other people were choosing to do things regarding like animal shelters or like helping people around the world. We wanted to do something different and that like would help everyone around the world, even if it starts out small now.
So Charlotte's my partner. We are currently in action with this project. We're going around trying to find different organizations who can help us with this project. And I think we're definitely hitting all of these learner profiles without even realizing it. We've been reflective, we've been thinkers in like what we do with our project. And I think this is like a great opportunity to continue that thinking.
So I'm going to talk in more of a broader sense about the community project, but with the community project, before actually doing anything, it's a lot of work, like on a process journal and lots of kind of MYP words like global context or statement of inquiry, ATL skills, stuff like that. And I assume that as MYP is implemented more and more in the schools, all the students coming up through the school system are going to have more experience with these words, kind of know what they mean. I, as an 8th grader, because the MYP project is being kind of still implemented step by step, I maybe, and I assume my peers are like this as well, but we maybe don't have that complete understanding of all these terms. But I assume as 6th graders and even classes below that are going to come up and start to do this community project as a mandatory thing in 8th grade, they're going to see how these terms are related to the real world. Oh, sorry. Because that's what this project is about. It's not just in school, not just in your classes. It's connecting now these terms and these skills that you've learned from your classes and taking them and applying them outside of school into the real world. It's kind of touching on that subject of how is this what I'm learning in school going to apply to the real world?
Yeah. MYP is all about being a global citizen, about being a part of your community. And I think the community project really demonstrates that, because it basically sums up all of the skills about MYP, the learner attributes, the stuff that we learned about global context and other subjects. It sums that up in a way that allows students to choose and allows students to make a meaningful impact on their community while also demonstrating their learning and demonstrating all these MYP things. And also this gives students experience on how the real world works and gives them experience helping people. That certainly will most definitely help students in their future.
Mic drop.
I'm just going to jump in really quick because I met with Samira and Charlotte as part of their research phase of their work. And I was blown away. So they came to talk to me about their composting idea. They want to implement a composting program here in district. And they were like, so we have these questions. You're probably not the right person, but we need help to figure out who do we ask about how much money the district spends on garbage pickup. We've done research on these composting companies that will pick it up. What can be done with it? And I was just blown away. And they came to my office, made an appointment with my secretary, sat down with me for like 30 minutes. We had a chit chat. We talked about my farm and how awesome composting is. And it was just so exciting to see kids purely engaged. There's no grade. They're not getting a grade for this. This is work that they volunteered to be part of and to kind of think about. And they're so impassioned about it. And thinking about, well, what does that mean for the high school? There's a lot of kids at the high school and a lot of food that gets thrown away. What an interesting way to think, and that our kids are thinking. And they left, and I was like, thanks, ladies. That was the best part of my day. And it was. And it's not an isolated conversation. The kids are really thinking about their impact not only on our community, but on the global community. And that's what we're hoping for all of our kids.
I want to touch upon two things that you just said, Ms. Mangoni. One is about it's not for a grade, it's about the learning. And that is a cultural shift that we are all, parents, teachers, students, because we have been in such a grade-driven society forever. And that's not to say that grades aren't important, but just looking at them in a different way, looking them at as feedback. This is where you are right now. This does not define you. It's more than a number. It's more about the learning and the experience and the skills that you are gaining. So looking at grades as a form of feedback rather than an identifying marker. And also you said it was the best part of your day. I have to say I met with these students last Wednesday during their win and during their lunch. I spent about an hour and a half with them. And it was one of the best hours and a half I've had in a long time. And that was just listening to them talk with each other. And it was their engagement and their enthusiasm and the way that they were naturally speaking to each other, agreeing, sometimes disagreeing in such an appropriate way, bouncing ideas off of each other, the camaraderie. And it was such a good reminder of who this is about. And it's about them and how and the benefits that it's instilling on them. It was so refreshing. I left, feeling so good about that time. Before I ask anybody else if there's a question, the students, some of the things that you had said last week, and there's no pressure if you wanted to bring forth today some of the points that you made. I know, I'm coming to you. She looked at you, Sophia, you looked at me and then you started to look away. I'm like, you shouldn't have made eye contact. You said something that I was like, that exactly sums it up about the skills that you learn and if you want to share.
I think I know what you're talking about. But I know that something that my mom always says is that school is like around 60% skill and learning about how to act with your friends, your teachers, and knowing and like just participating and being able to like speak your mind and like standing up for yourself, and around like 40% the actual content. I'm not saying that it's not important, it is, but I feel like school is mostly like how to interact with people. Like MYP, the skills that are up on this board here, they're the skills that we're learning in school and not just because the teachers are talking about them in almost every class. It's about how we just almost naturally learn them, not just by doing it perfectly, by just like almost failing and then learning based off our mistakes and reflecting off of it. And I feel like when you do it, there's so much that you almost learn after like almost like a day of school, like whether it's like with your friends or if you're like, oh, I wish I said something else, or like, oh, I wish I handled this differently. Like, it almost gives you like a chance to reflect on your mistakes and how you act.
And I do want to say that Ella, Connor, and Sam were part of our student panel that spoke with the verification team as well. So they've represented our school a couple of times. Are there any questions from the board that haven't been addressed by the students?
I have a lot of questions I'd love to ask these kids. But one I'm gonna ask because I think one concern. Oh, I think so. Lots of questions I'd love to ask, but I guess I'll start with just one so we can give the other people time. But I think one, it's different. What kind of world you guys are going to go into for work, and how what's important in education has changed a lot from when people like me were in school, and so and for your parents too. And so I think one of the concerns, one thing that I get asked a lot when we're talking about IB and talking about middle years program is, when we're doing all these interdisciplinary projects and all the things that you're working on, are you still feeling like you're getting enough time that you're learning some of the real basics? So if you could talk about maybe, for example, essay writing, do you feel like you're getting, like, how is that working, that you're learning how to do a research project and how to write an essay and present something in writing?
I think that before this, I was so much weaker, especially with essays. I think that MYP even makes it deeper. I know how to write an essay way better now that I have those things, so I can actually reflect, say, oh, hey, I didn't highlight this when I was supposed to. I think it made it so much deeper, you can really get a deep knowledge of how to do those things and how to do those things right and how to reflect.
For our 6th grade students, I know you just finished writing a content-based essay in social studies. If you wanted to talk about the process of how you learned how to do that or what you had to go through. You don't have to.
It's okay.
I know one thing in social studies that was kind of interesting when we did the essay is that, well, kind of going back, when we were reading and researching, at the end of every lesson, we wrote something in our process journals. It's basically like a book where we kept all that we learned so we don't forget it. And at the end of the unit, I remember looking back, just reading it, and I saw how they all connected, and it was really truly almost like I was in awe on how it happened like that. And I was not expecting it to be like that. I know that Miss Kilmer always says that the process journals are worth $1 million. It's almost like our thinking, and it makes us feel like everything that we write is almost worth $1 million.
So I know in 6th grade, they did just finish writing a content-based essay, and we went through that process kind of step by step, how to write an introduction. One of the components of MYP is that explicit teaching of skills. So for instance, if we wanted students to participate in a debate, before you expect that, you teach into specifically how do you debate with people, how do you disagree appropriately, how do you agree, how do you support your opinion, how do you provide evidence. So the same thing with writing an essay. I know that Mr. Palmeno mentioned before the project-based learning. That is one of the goals, right? Authentic assessments. But we also are realistic. From a student level, they can't have a project-based assessment going on in every single class at the same time, because that would be really overwhelming for them and almost kind of take away the excitement of doing that. So, the benefits of being at the middle school are the interdisciplinary teams and how we're beginning to utilize our team planning for more of those curriculum aspects and making sure, okay, if I'm doing this essay right now, that might be a good time for Mr. Palmeno to do his budget and his ratio. I should probably take that class, actually, now that I'm thinking about that. And that it's not feasible for a student to have that in every single class at the same time. That interdisciplinary unit, really, we utilized team planning every chance we could. And one of the things that we really began to work with our faculty on is that standardization of assessment also. We have a standardization of assessment policy. We spend professional development time talking about that. And what that means is, because it's not just a right there answer anymore, it's not right or wrong. In fact, we honor students and their work and how the answer doesn't have to be right. But when we're looking at our rubrics and things are based on a Socratic seminar or a discussion or a presentation, making sure that those grades are calibrated and how we're scoring those assessments are equal. So for LSU Social Studies, Mrs. Kilmer and I meet along with the special education teachers. They're a very important part of the team, and they assess students and they support that work. To make sure if a student scores a 7 out of 8 on their rubric in my class, they would score that in her class. In fact, we tried something. We were risk takers ourselves. We don't ask our students to do anything we wouldn't do ourselves. And we split our classes. And half of my students during the Socratic seminar went to Mrs. Kilmer's class, and half of her students came to mine. And we just felt we wanted to switch the dynamics. Switching the personnel switches the dynamics of the class. But we also did that to test ourselves. And when we scored our students and we got back together to make sure, I didn't know half the students, but would I score them? And we were right on the target to make sure, again, that there's that common experience and that they're being scored the same way. And that is work that is important part of this process, but that is how we begin to work on teams and utilize our professional development time, both dedicated professional development time on the calendar days and during the day.
Thank you so much for explaining.
I think we have
expanding
another.
on that.
We have some more.
So we are definitely still learning the basics, but it's not going straight to it. It's taking steps along the way to get to the spot that we want to make it in. So, for example, in social studies, we're leading up to the Great Depression unit, and at the end of the Great Depression unit, our assessment is going to be an essay. So currently we just finished World War I, and now we're working on the 1920s, and we're learning about how to write an essay. So we started with just learning how to write a paragraph, and then combining a few paragraphs and making sure to include topic sentences and concluding sentences, going through checklists to make sure that we have everything right. and then also going back, being reflective and going back and looking at what we might have done wrong and changing it to make sure that it looks right.
Great. Okay, thanks.
I know people have probably made it sound like all this MYP assessments there's never any sort of multiple choice or writing essay either, but there's plenty of that. I would say in some of my most MYP advanced classes, it's a lot of the assessments are writing. They're explaining your thinking through a lot of writing, so you're using these writing strategies to explain your thinking, and that's the MYP. And you have a rubric for that, obviously, but that's how you're using writing to express your thinking through the MYP.
Yeah, I agree. We're learning all the basics that we need to know in each class. As Connor said, we're learning how to do essays, but now what's different is that there's more of a step-by-step approach that focuses more on how you do it instead of the final product. So we're getting feedback at every step of the way. Like we write a paragraph, we get feedback on that, then we combine the paragraphs and we get more feedback. So we're constantly getting feedback on what we did good and how we can improve. And so we're learning the basics and probably learning them even better than we did before because they're being reinforced more instead of just getting vague feedback after the final product. We get feedback every step of the way.
I don't have questions. I'm just like, I'm floored. I don't know if you planned it, Ms. Coutinho. I felt like I was looking at the principles or the attributes. They were all evident in how you spoke. And I think about even teachers who are so focused on content, they're using these attributes when they're planning a lesson, when they're teaching you things, and when they're organizing activities. So no matter what you do, those attributes are going to come, handy no matter what you do in life. So I love that I saw that just in action and in word tonight, and I can't wait to see more. So thank you. Thank you all.
So I have a question for the students, if that's okay. So when I think about interdisciplinary content, I sort of think of like a mashup of two different content areas, right, that you might have learned separately. And I'm wondering if you could share with us how you're able to maybe remember content in a way now that you didn't remember it previously. If you can remember back to a time before there was MYP, but just how learning this content maybe stays with you longer. Does it stay with you longer? I don't want to assume. But if you could speak to that, that'd be great.
So I think that the changing in like the way assessments are formatted has really helped me like learn how to, or it's like it helps me remember things better. Like it's not just memorizing names and dates anymore. It's more looking at, like in science, we have to look at maps and annotate articles, define words that we don't know, and we have to apply that information to real world problems. And I think that sticks with me better than just looking at a study guide and answering a multiple choice question.
So earlier in like 6th grade, for example, when we had touched upon earthquakes, like natural disasters, it was memorizing each fact, like word for word, and then just like spitting that back into like the multiple choice test that we take. But now in science, we're like doing natural hazards, and we're also talking about like what that means for people around the world in like ELA, for example, when we're talking about like the human rights. So I think there's like a lot more connection.
Yeah, so as I said before, we're getting different ways to look at the same topic, and that helps us remember it better. For example, like in social studies, we might be learning about imperialism and how that was caused by a scarcity of resources. And in science, we're learning about how there are limited natural resources in the world, and that they're not found in every single place. And so that gives us two ways to think about the same topic, and it helps us remember it better because like there's more connections that are forming in the brain about how like you're looking at it in two different ways, which helps you remember it better.
Brilliant.
Yeah, to add on to that, I remember even from last year, Mr. P for enrichment, we did a project on the population of a certain continent, and like it connected the social studies and the geography of that to the math, and I still remember like all the skills I used. So it really like it deepened my knowledge, and I still remember that project to this day, and it was a really fun project.
In the interdisciplinary unit, it doesn't only connect with one subject to another subject. Sometimes it connects from one subject to when you're older and when you're like in real life in a way. Like to add on to what Mr. Palmena was saying about the car project is that how like what he was saying about how everyone wants like the most luxury car. But when you think about it, we saw the gas mileage, the price, like just like the looks of it, even though it can't carry this much, or some people want more space because you have a family, or you don't because you only have like 2 people in your family or not a lot. And I feel like it shows us that this is something that we're going to remember until like forever in a way. And I feel like it helps us like for when we're older, instead of just something that once we're out of the unit, it's over.
Thank you. Chad, go ahead.
I'm gonna ask a question. Can I? Sort of question, sort of an experiment. How many are 8th graders here? Or okay, and how many 6th graders? Okay, my question is this. I'll ask 8th graders first. Since now you're 8th grader, what would you advise to the 6th graders? I have experienced MYP. Now you start from 6th grader, you're gonna go through this program in 2 minutes. Tell what you should do. Okay? And then I want to ask 6th graders, what do I look forward to? Now I have started something. I had a little bit of experience now. Will I do this? Will I do that? Or something in the 8th grade? Okay? That's the question.
Nate, before looking at assignments, you can't always just like read the question and then just immediately answer it. A lot of times there's rubrics attached to the assignments, and you have to go through and take out and not like look deeper into the rubric and see what it means, and then apply the rubric to the test or whatever you're writing about.
You definitely have to work on time management skills, because we get a lot more work, and that work isn't just like answering the questions like Sam said. You have to look at the rubric and like analyze what it says so you can put out your best work, and that takes a lot more time than just like memorizing something or like picking a multiple choice answer.
I'll talk about like the community project, because I know that you all will be doing it in your 8th grade year. So for us, like this was sort of like a trial run. With our community project, you definitely have to have a lot of time and like the determination to work on this outside of school. It can't be just like, it can't be a thing that you start in like the beginning of the year and be like, oh, by the end of the year, I still have to do this. You also have to know that sometimes not like everything will work out. So you have to have different ideas and think about what you can do to be better prepared.
Yeah, I just want to say that as the tests are, I don't want to say that they're getting more difficult, but they're measuring or learning in different ways. So I would suggest that you study not only by memorizing the facts and the dates, but by going through the curriculum and seeing what are the main ideas or the main conclusions that I can make from what I learned, because that's what I think the teachers want to see, what the main idea or the most important thing that you got from a given unit.
I just want to highlight, because I don't think it's very clear, but these 8th graders came to SMS my first year here as well during the height of the pandemic. They were here every day, but in 2 separate classrooms of groups of 10 or 11, Zooming with their teacher and a teaching assistant. It was like this, like teachers on roller skates. And they have gone through this process, and yet still, through the determination, hard work, and tremendous amount of investment of our staff, have experienced MYP in a way that they can articulate themselves the way that they have for you tonight, which I think speaks volumes to this type of pedagogy and instruction. And then on the other side of the coin, you have our newbie MYP students who will know nothing different when they leave us. And I'm excited to see what they say when they're 8th graders about their experience, because you pointed that out before, kind of, right? Like, there's a lot of language in MYP that comes along with it. And in reflecting now as 8th graders, being comfortable with that is something that you guys are still working on.
Yeah, I'm going to build upon that in my answer to the question posed earlier, but I would almost say, maybe this is the wrong answer, but I would almost say maybe we're not in a position to give advice to these 6th graders in navigating MYP, because I think, to no fault of the teachers or administrators or anyone, I think our experience in SMS was definitely different. It was, we came in the height of a pandemic that was like nothing experienced in however long, and this MYP thing, it was still new, it was still being phased in. So like I said before, I'm sure some of my peers, like, we've never done a process journal, or we've never really done like ATL, some of these words that I've heard doing the community project, we've not really seen in our classes, and I'm sure it's going to be phased in later, but I think it's sort of just still in the process. And so I think maybe this class of 6th graders or class of 7th graders is going to be the first real class of 8th graders that can give true MYP advice.
I just want to highlight that it's the way that the students are speaking to each other, right? Building upon and adding on. Those are some of the things we directly teach into that they're just doing naturally. That's on their own. And when we talk about fears that people have, public speaking is one of the biggest fears that people have. And to sit in a panel of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who were risk takers, who were open, who were honest, and who were so poised to represent our school and so mature and so honest, I think it's pretty incredible, and we are so lucky that you are here and you have so represented our school and yourselves and your family so well. So kudos to all of you. It's pretty incredible.
Just to sum up what Connor said, we might not know everything, so the biggest piece of advice that I can give to you is to be prepared to learn many new things and to work hard to learn them.
To build on what Lenny just said, I think that's one of the pillars.
To the 8th grade?
Yeah. I think that's one of the pillars of the MYP world, is that this is never done. Right? We are constantly reflecting. We are constantly improving. We are constantly looking for ways to challenge. The reflection is such a huge piece of this program that even if we were all implemented, I don't know that your experience going through 3 years will be the same as the next 3 years.
Yeah, that's my point.
It's going to be different. And I think that's a really big thing to point out, that our faculty and staff work so hard to be reflective after each unit, after each lesson, to think about where can I improve? Kids give us feedback. This is where I think you could improve. So this is a constant work in motion.
And just to add to that, I would totally agree. With our assessments, even this year, we've changed them from last year. We actually implemented many MYP units last year in science in 8th grade, and this is our 2nd year actually running through our units. And we've already changed 2 of our assessments, constantly changing, reflecting, and looking at what's happening in the world as well. I mean, one of the assessments that was recent was talking about Amazonia and what's happening in the Amazon and natural resources, as Lenny mentioned. And I have to just say that the imperialism content that happened in social studies meshed perfectly with natural resources, and we didn't even plan an interdisciplinary unit, but we are actually talking about doing that in the future because we said this was the perfect opportunity and we didn't realize it. And we're learning as we're kind of progressing and moving through it as well. And I just have to say that we do spend a tremendous amount of time reflecting. I know that myself and Mr. Panetta, as well as the 2 special education teachers we work with, we are always together and having conversations about what we're doing, how are we going to make it better, and what's going to happen next. So it does require a great amount of time, a lot of collaboration, and I think that it's very valuable. So not only are our students asked to reflect, but the faculty, the staff does that quite often as well. So just wanted to make sure you're aware of that.
Well, I just want to say thank you for everybody for being here tonight, family for bringing the kiddos and keeping them out tonight. In our school district, our motto is forward in excellence. If you didn't get that tonight, I don't know where you were, because this is moving this district next forward in excellence. This is our next right step, and we'll continue to evolve and go forward in excellence. So if it's all right with the board, I'm just going to take maybe a 5-minute break so we can just say thanks to the kids and to the families, and we'll come back in just about 5 minutes. So.
Ray, before we break, can
My
I just
apologies.
say one thing?
Yes. Do you want a mic? Paul's going to touch his mic.
So I just wanted to, what I'm reflecting on tonight are the kids and what we've heard from our students and how well they express themselves, and also from our teachers, and want to recognize the hard work that Jeff and John have put into. This is a huge lift. Every teacher in this building has collaboratively rewritten their units for their curriculum that they may have been teaching for years and years and years. They're continuously reflecting and rewriting assessments and planning that. And spearheading the whole thing is Jenna Scatino, who's the MYP coordinator here at the middle school, and who leads the team, leads the leadership, leads the team, leads the learning, liaises with the IB themselves, liaises with us as administration. She's a force to be reckoned with and does not often take no for an answer.
Needs that budget question.
And it's wonderful because she's meticulously going over documentation, helping every department with their work, uploading it to IB, communicating, making sure that we're meeting the requirements of IB, and she buys snacks for every meeting out of her own pocket.
A meeting with that snack should be an email.
And when the IB verification team was coming and wanted to do this virtually, they said, well, we're not visiting schools. And she said, sorry, that's not how it's going to go here. We're here, and we'd like it if you came in person. And they did, and it was very successful. So I just want to give a shout out to Ms. Scatino for all of her hard work in supporting the entire operation.
We are definitely a team here, and it's very obvious how it's going.
On behalf of your board, I just want to say thank you to all of our faculty and our staff who have made the middle years program so successful in the school, and thank you to the students who came and spoke to us. We very seldom get to hear from you, and we always want to hear from you. We are always bothering these folks to hear from you. So for you to come tonight, and thank you again to the families for bringing them, and to share with us your learning experience and how powerful this has been for your learning, please know that we appreciate you for showing up, and we're so just thrilled and proud of your, I can't say it better than the way that you said it, Ms. Scatino, your poise and the eloquence with which you discuss your learning. So what a joy. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, can I, I'm going to add to that.
You want to add on?
Build on.
Build on it.
Hold on, sorry.
You threw a Socratic seminar. Next time.
No, but that was absolutely amazing. But I do want to just say, I publicly thank you guys before you leave. That was absolutely amazing, hearing all of you speak and the courage that you showed here, talking in front of not only this audience here, but the millions of viewers we have. Not that bad, I'm kidding. But no, I'm absolutely amazed. And then also some of the stuff you prepped beforehand and had some time to think about it, but there was a lot of impromptu questions, and wow, you guys were just asking for the mic and looking to take that. So thank you very much. It's super impressive, right? I can't wait to see, some of you guys, as future leaders, in the country, school, or different businesses. But thank you very much. And I do want to recognize, I'm not sure who's leaving after this, and I know we have board comments, but I'm not sure if the teachers are leaving or anything like that. But to continue on that, I do want to call attention to the fact that this was kicked off in 2016, and this is a multi-year effort with multiple stages that were implemented throughout this time period, and to see the effort that went in for the professional development, the teachers, the process updates, the classroom stuff, the reflection that you did to adjust and then learn from it and see this output from these kids. It's a massive undertaking and effort, and I want to thank the teachers and the administration that were involved in this, and recognize them for all their hard work and maintaining that goal and that outlook, over this, multi-year horizon to achieve this. So thank you very much. Nice work.
Thank you.
And
Thank you all. I had a lot of questions, and I just want to say I couldn't keep up with you kids. And you kept answering them before I could even get to them, and you just kept going, and it was really amazing. And it's kind of evidence that you never really get to the answer. It's always a continual process, always building upon, and it's really impressive that you're already encompassing that. I mean, I would be curious to hear, has this changed how you approach things outside of school? Challenges, problems, frustrations, things that you're just interested in? Do you approach them differently?
But we're still
You
going
don't
to
have
let
to
them go
answer.
home.
No, we need to go.
Eddie does have a shameless plug for us.
Yeah, so I'm just going to chime in since we all want to hear so much more from our students. We are planning on a showcase event for our community project pilot. So that will be taking place on Thursday, May 11th in the evening here at SMS. And there will be more details to come, but we do invite all community members, 6th and 7th grade students and teachers to see students have their work on display and hear more in detail about their process of learning and the action that they took in this experience. So that's Thursday, May 11th at SMS.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want one sentence. I think you all showed the confidence I'm looking for. Really impressive. You're very assured of yourself and you speak. That's really great. Thank you for coming.
I just want to really quickly, I want to just say thank you as well. Like, as a parent of 8th graders who've been through this process now too, coming in, and I sat on the parent panel for the middle years program, and how impressed those individuals were with our school just attests to the fact of all the hard work you guys have put in. And I just, lifelong learners all the way. I think it's a great thing that you guys have done.
Thanks, everybody. So we will take a quick break just so the board can say hi to the families. We'll get back together. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Paul. We'll go ahead and get restarted. So thank you, sir. So again, thank you, board, for, again, that time and our roundtable conversation. Again, I think the children spoke very clearly tonight about everything that we're hoping and desiring for us to provide for our kids. And again, I think your question was a great one, and I actually think the response was even better. I think that the kids did a great job looking towards our 6th grade children coming up. So we'll go ahead and just head on to the next couple of small items again, and we'll close as this is a work session. So
Great. So we are at the personnel consent agenda, and everyone is caught up, hopefully, with the board document. So be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby approves the attached personnel agenda. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, conversation?
No, ma'am.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Business consent agenda. Be it resolved the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the Superintendent, hereby approves the attached business agenda. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Chris?
Not really anything to discuss here.
Nothing exciting. Any questions,
Nothing
folks?
exciting.
No, that was clear. We talked about that.
Fastest work ever. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained? All right, so being as that the work of our meeting has adjourned, we move to the public forum. So any community members who wish to speak should be recognized. Please head to the podium, share your name, and make any sort of board comments that you'd like about any items that you would like to share with us. Excellent. So we now move to the board member comments. Board members.
Well, I'd just like to say, wow, that was a great night. And I just thank you for allowing the students, bringing an opportunity for the students and everyone to come here. I feel like every time there was something that has to do with the middle years program, it would get canceled, whether it was weather, whatever the case may be. So it was so great to finally see all of that come together tonight, and I look forward to our site visit in a couple weeks.
Yeah, this was incredible. I definitely appreciate it. You know, it always leads to questions. The kids that were here tonight were really, really impressive. There's a whole grade of, I'm sure, differences in how other kids might, you know, consume this type of learning, and then how it helps them or what challenges they run into. So that is something I would definitely be curious about, what that range is and what kind of supports some might need. I mean, I know there's a lot of, that's partly what this NYP about and IB is about, is giving opportunities to be able to demonstrate your knowledge and your abilities, and in different ways sometimes as needed. And it's always good to learn about that. But I think as on the board, that's something I always challenge, to make sure that you're not missing someone.
I mean, I already said it. I just, you know, I heard so much from each kid, just reflection and the power of feedback. I think that's what true learning is. I mean, without even them being asked to think about natural resources across curricula, but they were able to make the connections. And I think, and I appreciated, I think what Connor had said just about, you know, it's not perfect yet, but he can see the benefits of it over time. And I think at the end of the day, like, if a kid can just reflect and articulate on their learning, then I think we've done a big part of the job, which is to educate them and send them out into the world and to do the same thing. So I appreciate being able to see it. And often we see products. I can't wait to see the community project. But the process to me is so much more fun. So I want to see more of, like, what got them to this table. Like, so more of that. And the product is also great, but more process. But I appreciated the kids and the parents who supported them. I think that's just, it just shows it takes a village. So thank you.
Can they come every week?
Yes.
I won't be offended by it. That'll be just fine.
We're not kidding.
No, I'm not either. So I think that, unless somebody else, I'll just close it out.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yes.
Well, comment, yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Ife, and then.
All right. I just want to say that, you know, education is tough, and it's very difficult to measure also. So this kind of activity is great. I really enjoyed, and I think we should do this more often. And perhaps we should also sometimes elevate the bar a little bit. I would love to hear one of the students to bring an essay and say, "This is my essay. I'll read it to you," and in this forum. I think we could do that sometime if we. I really enjoy this more than any other discussion. So that's my comment.
Yeah, I think it was really powerful being able to hear from the kids. And sort of at first, I think they sort of knew the questions and what to expect, but that they could just, you know, there wasn't dead air when we asked questions that they weren't expecting either, you know, and they just kept kind of building on the topics. And to hear that was really impressive. And the thing that really struck me is listening to them, listening to how reflective they were, and imagining what they're going to be like as juniors and seniors in high school. And, you know, knowing that right now the IB diploma program is a scary thing for a lot of students to consider. It's big. It's got a lot that it entails, and it's something that's new and very different. And for the kids that are going through this middle years program and will be from 6th grade learning this way, I can see that not being nearly as overwhelming a task. You know, they'll have done these community action projects that they're working, you know, they'll have so much experience behind them that I think they're going to be a lot more confident to rise to some of those challenges. You know, and just, you know, reflecting that as parents, you know, school is so different from when we went to school, and the educational approaches have changed because the whole world and what we need and how we interact has changed.
and just, kind of seeing what they're doing now and how they're learning, being, what's that experience in college too, having my kids at the other end of the spectrum. I wish I could take them and put them back, so they could do this middle school experience, because they'd be just all the stronger, because these are the kinds of skills that they need in college now too. And that reflection, thinking about, we would take tests, and you take a test, if you get a bad grade, you're upset about it, and you just sort of leave it there and nothing would happen. And so that reflection piece that they're getting at, that the learning doesn't end with that grade, but then they're challenged to think about what they need to learn, and so that it keeps moving forward. So thanks so much for this opportunity tonight.
It's great.
This was
Thank
great.
you. Thank you.
So I really appreciate the process journal. This is my process journal. And so I felt very validated that they were using process journals also. I take copious notes when y'all are talking, because I'm learning from you. And tonight I was learning from our students. And to me, that was so powerful. It was so powerful to listen to them talk about. I know Dr. Blanche talks about continuous improvement. And so much of our work is, how can we make sure that we're continually improving and getting better and pushing our students to be even better versions of themselves. And our students showed us that today. And that was, to me, really incredible. One of the students who was here was talking about reflecting on how they act after the fact, and knowing that you can always fix something. If you do something not right the first time, that you can always go back and fix it. And to me, as a mom, that's what I want my kids to know. Like, that's how I want them to be in the world, and that's how I am trying to be better in the world. And so thank you for making that a possibility for our kids. I think that they're already doing what they need to do in real life, because this is all real life. Anyhow, I just wanted to say thank you. I was just so impressed. And I don't know if you're going to say this, Ray, so forgive me if I step over. I wanted to call out that I saw on the dashboard for this week that we have the Science Research Practice Night was coming up this Thursday. Is that right?
Yep.
And the musical, again, is this weekend.
Right.
Amanda, you
At the middle school.
At the middle school.
So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 2 shows, 2 and 7 p.m., but otherwise 7 p.m. on the.
And then next week we have a half day on Wednesday for professional learning, so parents just prepare. I think I did all of the reminders that I wanted to remember.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Lion King Jr.
Thank
correct?
you for letting me share.
We got that going.
Thank
So
you.
That's going to be a pretty popular one, I think. So absolutely. So then just a couple of things here. So as Jeff mentioned before, in general, started this project about 7 years ago. A couple of years before that is when the high school started their DP work. And so they researched, identified, did their pilot, did their implementation. They've already now into their first year, their 6th year of offering the program. Mm-hmm. The high school right now is working on their MYP experience for 9th and 10th grade. So I just want to remind the board that that's where some of the future conversations will come from, where we'll still need to continue this conversation. Again, I really appreciate that where Jenna shared that this is all students and every student in the middle school piece here. And that will be the same for the 9th and 10th grade. So you're looking at 6th through 10th grade. Again, the state standards as she identified, the expected learning targets are the same. It's how do we approach that? Which, as you, I think, saw and heard, is materialistically a different way, as well as, I think, a more powerful way. And I think you heard that from the kids. So the work this year, the team, after they made the site visits and identified they're moving forward with the high school, at the end of this year, they will have established developing 1 unit. And you heard Jenna say we kind of stepped into that. And that's kind of where some of the 8th grade kids, their first experience was 1 unit. Next grade, next year, 9th grade, the kids will have 1 unit to go through in that 9th grade. And then now they'll be developing 2 more levels next year, so they'll have 3 units. And then in the fall of the 24-25 school years, when we'll be looking for the accreditation for the school at the high school to get accredited, just like we did this year. And so that's a piece that we'll be looking for, that next level of accreditation. So board will be a part of that and going through that again with the kids. So in a relationship to that, and I think Heidi, you spoke to this, that we are certainly seeing increased volume of children at the high school. We certainly believe part of it is because of this. Part of it is because of our embedded honors program. Part of it is open enrollment of more students accessing some higher level curricula, be it the International Baccalaureate program or the Advanced Placement program. we have seen those numbers significantly increase. And working with the building administration at the high school, having some conversations there with some folks that what we're looking to do in the budget for next year, and we know we'll be kind of pulling those two pieces together at our next board meeting, is removing that potential barrier for families, because there is an additional fee that goes on top of an IB or an AP course. So looking to remove that barrier so that's just not there anymore. It's just, would you like to participate? You may or may not want to do the full IB piece. That's just fine. But to at least have access and know it's there without having to be troubled and worried about it. It does add up pretty quickly. And so we're looking at putting that into the budget so that as a removal piece, because we are significantly seeing it's double fold over the last 5 years how many kids are accessing this program. So that we do not want to get in the way of any child or any family, and if you have a couple of kids at the same time too, it can add up pretty quick, of avoiding that being an issue. Just want to let you know that that's the piece that we'll be looking at putting into the district's budget as we move forward, making sure all students can have access to that program. So just let you know that. So, and thanks again for the evening tonight. Again, be great. And we do have a site visit that was snowed out the last time. So hopefully you can see that process a little bit more in place. You won't get the full piece here. You may, hey, can I see that? What are you talking about, that process? Or they open it up and talk to you and show it to you and things like that. So you can kind of see that in action. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So be it resolved that the special meeting workshop, the Board of Education, be adjourned. Motion? So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.